we don't get fooled again.
The World Health Organization's directives about how to fight this virus are the most authoritative in the world. We must listen to the WHO, they tell us, period. The second thing they've told us is that Sweden's refusal to lock down its country is criminally misguided. People are dying as a result of that decision. Anyone who claims otherwise is immoral. That's what they've been saying again and again. Well, something amazing has happened. The World Health Organization just endorsed the Swedish approach. So what does that say about the very non-Swedish lockdowns currently paralyzing our country? More than 30 million people have lost their jobs in just the past 2 months. Across the world, the figure is likely in the hundreds of millions. Now, the authorities would tell you this destruction and suffering was caused by the coronavirus, but that's not true. The virus itself destroyed virtually no jobs. Those jobs, these economies, these families were destroyed by lockdowns which are ordered by politicians. The past 2 months, in which almost all businesses have closed and most workers have been ordered to stay home, have been the most economically destructive global event since the Second World War. Now, we've been assured repeatedly that all of this was absolutely necessary. The World Health Organization praised the government of China as a global model for responding because China quarantined an entire city bigger than New York City for 2 months. Top health officials told us we had no choice but to follow suit. Our politicians agreed, and they threatened to arrest anyone who didn't obey their orders.
Feel this, man. Look what the wrong with these
Unlike almost every other Western nation, Sweden steadfastly refused to lock down. Restaurants there stayed open, so did schools. Life remained, for the most part, fairly normal.
I think there's a perception out there that Sweden has not put in place control measures and has just allowed the disease to spread. Nothing could be further from the truth. I think if we are to reach a new normal, I think in many ways Sweden represents a future model of if we wish to get back to a society in which we don't have lockdowns.
So after a month of sustained hysterics and propaganda praising the Chinese government's lockdown policy, in which people were locked from the outside in their apartments until they starved to death, after months of hearing how great that is, after incalculable damage to hundreds of millions of families, the World Health Organization is now telling us, almost casually, that actually our model should be Sweden.
No, what?
The World Health Organization has always been wrong about coronavirus. But at a minimum, authorities were once again incredibly, shockingly wrong about their prescriptions for fighting coronavirus. The strategy they pushed relentlessly, in fact, forced us to follow, hurt us in the end more than the virus they claimed to be fighting. And at the same time, they silenced anyone who dared disagree with their silly prescriptions. Protecting public health, it turns out, and this is becoming really obvious, was just an excuse, a pretext. For the people in charge, rolling back your rights and making you obey was clearly the goal.
Nobody's suggesting you should just let Corona rip through. But likewise, you also need to understand that a strict lockdown is just simply not sustainable. You can't ask people to be locked down for months and months on end. And also, you're just simply pushing most of the deaths in front of you. And that's why I think it was inevitable. Sooner or later, we'd have to realize we'd all have to become somewhat like Sweden, a smart solution, something that tackles the issue and keeps the level of infection below the capacity of the healthcare system, but doesn't actually say we're going to have something that we can't live with in the long run.